Hey guys, so this is episode 8, which is going to be on percents and proportions. So on this episode, you will learn how to use proportions to solve percent problems and how a percent bar can visually represent percent problems. So a percent bar model compares a part to a whole. So below is an example of how to find 40% of 35 using a percent bar. So if we look at this percent bar, you notice that on the right side, it has 0%, 40%, and 100%. And then on the left side of the percent bar, it has 0 and 35. So 100% of 35 is 35. 0% of 35 will be 0. So then you notice that this percent bar is divided into 5 pieces. Because if we think about 40% as a fraction, 40% would be 40 hundredths, which is 4 tenths, which can be simplified to 2 fifths. So you can choose to divide this percent bar into tenths or hundredths, but fifths will be easier because it's less pieces. So 40% is 2 fifths. So that's why 2 of the pieces are shaded. So if we want to find 40% of 35, we want to think about the size of each piece. So if we think about the size of each piece is 1/5. So each piece will be 7 because 1/5 of 35 is 7, because 35 divided by 5 is 7. So since 1/5 of 35 is 7, 2 fifths will be 7 times 2, which is 14. So 40% of 35 equals 14. So this is just kind of a way that you can visualize this problem by thinking about using a percent bar to mentally divide into pieces and figuring out the size of each piece. So an example involving using a proportion. So the question says, what percent of 7 is 4? We can represent this problem using a proportion. So our proportion is part over whole equals x over 100. Since I don't know what the percent is, that's why my numerator is x, because I don't know what percent it is yet. So what we need to figure out is 7 the part or the whole? So 7 is going to be the whole, and 4 is going to be the part. So if we plug those into our proportion, part over whole equals 4 over 7, so 4 over 7 equals x over 100. So now we want to solve for x. Since 7 doesn't go into 100 evenly, we need to use a different strategy rather than just simply scaling up. So we can use the property of cross products to cross multiply and divide. So how this works is we have 4/7 equals x over 100. The 4 and the 100, if we multiply those together, those are going to be equal to if we multiply 7 by x. So when I do 100 times 4 equals 7 times x, that will look like 400 equals 7x. If I want to get x by itself, I need to divide both sides by 7. So 400 divided by 7 equals x. 400 over 7 is improper. As a mixed number, it will be 57 and 1/7. And since my question asks for a percent, I'm going to put a percent sign after my 57 and 1/7. So 4/7 equals 57 and 1/7%. Now you might be thinking, well, there's other strategies that we can use, and that's true. So another strategy we could use is we could just divide 4 by 7 to figure out what decimal that will be, and then write that as a percent. Or we can scale up 4/7 to 400 over 700, because then we can go from 700 to 100 by dividing by 7, and then we can do 400 divided by 7 to get our answer. So these are 2 other strategies that we can use. Now let's look at a different example. So it says, what percent of 72 is 54? So we're going to use a proportion to find the percent. So we think part over whole equals x over 100. So then we have to think, well, 72, is that our part or our whole? Well, that's going to be our whole, and 54 is going to be our part. So now we have 54 over 72 equals x over 100. So since 72 doesn't go into 100 evenly, we can use the property of cross products to multiply. So we can do 54 times 100 equals 72 times x. So 54 times 100 is 5,400. 72 times x is just 72x. Now to get x by itself, we divide both sides by 72. So 5,400 divided by 72 equals 75, which will be 75%. So other ways that we could find this percent is we could simplify 54 over 72 by scaling down by 9 to get 6/8, and then scaling down by 2 to get 3/4, which we have memorized and know that that's 75%. Or we can divide 54 by 72 to get the decimal, then change it to a percent. So any of those strategies works. Our last example is what number is 24% of 200? Now this problem is going to look a little different than our previous ones because now we know the percent and we don't know what number is 24% of 200. So we can use a proportion to help us again. So we think we know our percent this time. So now I know that my x is going to be 24 because percents are out of 100. So the unknown in this problem is not going to be our percent, it's going to be our part. Since we know 200 is our whole, our part is missing. So since the part is unknown, we want to fill in this proportion with the pieces we do know. So the part over 200 equals 24 over 100. We can use the cross product strategy here, but looking at this one, it's pretty easy to see because 100 times 2 is 200. So you can just do 24 times 2 to get 48. You could use cross products by doing 200 times 24 and then dividing by 100, but this one's pretty easy to see that it'll be 48. So 48 is 24% of 200. Now other strategies that we've been talking about to find a percent of a number is by using benchmark percents. So we could find 10% of 200, which will be 20, and then multiply by 2. And then we can find 1% of 200, which will be 2, and multiply by 4, which will also get us 48. We could also change 24% to a decimal and then multiply, or we can change 24% to a fraction, then set up a different proportion to solve for x. So again, none of these strategies are any better or any worse. It just kind of depends on what the problem is. That's going to let you know which strategy is best to use. Okay, awesome. And thanks for watching. See y'all tomorrow.